Hey, everybody. Hello. Happy Friday. How are y'all? It is a beautiful day. Chilly one, but I'm not complaining. I like the cold weather. But anyway, so thank you for tuning in and thank you for being part of this here journey. And thank you. That's all I got to say is you make it exciting, baby. So there we are. We are on live. That's what it says. It says, Steiger, you're on live. Yeah, I say, I know. I can see. All right. So, what's up, everybody? Good to see y'all. Uh, it's a wonderful day in the Milky Way. As our friend Brian is no doubt exploring. I hope that that is the case. And what else is happening? Favor be upon us all. Nothing missing, nothing broken. Full restoration, abundance of favor, grace. Yeah, I kind of dig that. Favor goes with me wherever I go, goes before me, comes behind me, walks beside me, is ever above me. You know, I can always come out to be the head, not the tail. I'm always above and not beneath. I always come out on top and not the bottom. So there we go. That's how it works. And BOSTO, we are prospering. I can tell you, I keep getting emails. Jackie is the latest one. Then Linda, I got yours, Linda Brooks, and enjoyed it. I'm going to be responding on the emails this weekend. Um, Houses, folks, houses. And these angels, she said that she was with one angel and it wasn't the right one. And then she found another and absolutely hit spot on. You know, a fascinating book. I mean, it really is. I hope you have a copy. If you don't, you should get one. There, the PDF is available. And, you know, if you get to know them, Al's working on every one of these. We'll have the flash deck up and going. And she found one angel that fit the bill. And boom, baby. They're very anxious to ever be working on our side. So the stuff works. That's all I got to say. Hey, Kaz Hawk, how you doing, my love? Good to see you. Julie and Deborah and Janie, hello. Isbay, good to see you. Jill and Dave and beloved Abstract. Eva, good to see you. Elderberry, how you doing? Jack Dreaming, good to see you. Deborah Sloan. Delaney, good to see you, hon. Who else is Nina the Mystic? Make sure to check her out. She said she got the book. Now find the time to get started. Yeah. Nina, I always find turning the first page. It's like, oh, okay. You know, hey, Jules, much love to you, dear. It is my favorite book. I can't wait till the deck gets done. We're going to be giving away 3 of them here. Going to have the individual. I'm going to try to get Big Al, and we're probably going to do it on a second look. I think this is the first time, and Big Al, you tell me, I know you're listening out there somewhere, where we had so many pre-orders. I mean, this is quite remarkable. It's going to, you know what? You know, I like giving gifts. So this is another one that going to be well worth it to buy and to start giving it to those who can truly appreciate it. So anyway, David Castle, much love to you, brother. How you doing? So Miriam, good to see you. Martin and Heidi, hello. And Paul and Gaia, much love to y'all as well. Let's see. Isn't that interesting, Jules? Yeah, it's a cool book. You know, someone said, well, I'm not sure about, you know, the sigil encased in the circle. And, you know, it's like, I look at it like this. Some people like milk. And then there's some people who don't like milk, but like chocolate milk. So, you know, whatever floats your boat, darling. That's all right. Hey, Dragon Soul Fox, missed you as well. Where you been? Hey, Grace, good to see you. Man, a lot of people just tuning in. So, Francis, brother, standing with you. It sucks, doesn't it? Yeah. Well, Yeah. See, I believe that all things are possible to those who believe. So, hey, Shannon, what's up? Uh, we're receiving it right there and sending it right back at you, hon. So, yeah, listen, we are in a remarkable species. We really are. We're so complex. We're beautiful creatures, but we're just lost. My book I'm writing, and it's going to be fun. I'll have it done this winter. The title of it is Spiritual Orphans, because that's what humanity is. We're spiritually orphaned from wherever we came from, and we're so desperate to find our spiritual center, our spiritual identity in the universe, that we make up gods. We create them, literally. It's not them creating us. It's the other way around. We create them. But you can't tell people that, because most people will say, well, that's ludicrous. Really? I mean, every Bible, every Quran, every Vedic, every Talmud, Torah, all of those were channeled. Witchcraft, channeling. And if they weren't channeling with the dead, then who were they plugging into? Or it may be more appropriate to ask, into what? You see, I kind of look at it like this. If we weren't this, we must have something. Because if life is propagated throughout the whole universe, then why are they bothering with us? I mean, in our current nature, we're animalistic. It's the kingdom from which we are held captive to. And within that animalistic kingdom, it's foreign to us. We were never exposed to such. But something we must have, something that we must possess, something that's a legacy to us, that draws the attention of supposedly gods, goddess, deities. I mean, whatever you want to call them. It's interesting about us. And if we could ever get our shit together as a species, that will be the day that there will be a universal shockwave that goes out throughout the whole existence of what this realm is. And then we will become the center of attention. I get a sense that there'll be a lot of species says, well, how the hell did they do that? I mean, if there was ever a species that was truly screwed up, it's humans. I mean, so how did they do this? How did they find the unity to come together? And I'll tell you, that will be a glorious day. So that's all I'd be saying. Because something is, there are those conflicting realities. That's all there is. It's true. And these 72 angels, I mean, these cats, I'm sure that there are hundreds of trillions of others. But you know what? You get to know some of these. I have one pulled up, Poiel, because, we are prospering. And Poiel is one of the chief angels, is writing on this one. And here's the interesting thing about Poiel is that, and Jackie, I believe, called on this one. Is that one right? I think. And look what it says. This obtain any desire. What is your desire? If I were to give you $100, how many of you could write your desire right now? Sorry, time's up. You ever raise venture capital to get into a venture capital conference? It's a competition. And back in the day when the VC market was really hot, premier events like the Southwest Venture Conference, I guess over 4,000 companies applied, and they only chose 20. I was one of the 20. And in part of the competition, it was at the Anatole Hotel right there in Dallas, and they got an elevator just for this purpose. So to get the final group that was going to be able to present the next day to well over 3,000 investors, venture capitalists, angel investors, mezzanine, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, you got on an elevator, you have this camera, right? It's right in your face, and it's crowded in there. And then you have this moderator, and you have enough time to go from the lobby area up to, and I think the Anatole was 29 or 30 floors, and it was an express. And then based on what your response was, at about 30 seconds is what it really took. And if you couldn't adequately communicate what the value proposition of your company was in less than 30 seconds, then you were out on your ass. You could go there as a consolation, but you didn't get up on stage. And there's nothing like that feeling. I mean, you got 3,000 plus people out there, and anyway, I digress. So to obtain any desire, this power sounds a little too good to be true, but Jackie found it to be true, I believe. But it is one that the members of the Gallery of Magick have all used with good results. This is a cool angel. Make sure you call on this angel when the desire seems vital to your very existence. And Jackie, I think that's what housing is very important. That is, I think, one of the things for your very existence, rather than merely because the desire is pleasing to you. Ask for help when you have a desire that seems to suit your life, but currently seems impossible or out of reach. A second approach is to use this angel when you have a desire that has almost come to fruition several times. Almost got that apple, huh? But has never quite made it through to reality. This angel will break through that barrier. Increase fame and fortune. This angel can help to build your personal charisma and also develop your fame and your luck. To get the best results, ask for an increase in fame and fortune in a particular area of your life that matters greatly to you. Ideally, this should be your main profession or a hobby that you want to turn into a profession. In short, use the power on things that really matter to you and that have the potential to bring fame and fortune. There are so many people in this tribe, brilliant business minds, artisans of all motifs. Yeah. And then brings fame through the talent when you're working with your natural talent. And that's really what we all should. None of us should be going to a job. A job means just above broke, I think is, I think I got that wrong, but anyway, you get the idea. You should be doing what you were given, the gifts. I think that's the other shame about our educational system, is that it doesn't properly teach the gifting that is inherent into every person. Anyway, let's see. Call on this angel to make your talent become recognized by those who can help you. Ask the angel to bring you fame when it matters most, and to make your fans love you with a genuine talent that you are offering. When promoting yourself in any way, you will need to market aspects of yourself that are not related to your talent. But this angel works to make your talent be seen most clearly. Gotta love that. If you're a performer, this angel is it. And again, Ke Ra Sa A E O Ie Baha Ma Ye Fa Ar Ana Vim Bishu A. That's the invocation. Beautiful angel. Anyway, I digress. Not actually. It's always good to talk to. They love when someone talks about them. It's kind of like a gift, you know. So I like gifting. So hit the like button while you're here, folks. Hey, Big Al, what's up, brother? Bernadette, good to see you. I'm an artist and ask Poel for help. It will happen. I'm telling you. It's the ways of prospering every day is amazing. And don't fall into this false expectation that you think it's just going to come in at one time. It typically comes in the levels of what you actually know that you believe. And they'll continue to always up it a little bit more. And you'll see it coming from a place that you didn't even think about. Even when something seems to be taken away, these beings have a way of manipulating past. We read that already. It's one of their talents. They can go in time and go into the past, your past. And they can look at the events of your life and where you need just a slight, and I mean just a slight adjustment. A slight adjustment in the past would have tremendous impact on the present, because when the adjustment was made, it was future present. Wow. Blows me away. Someone asked for my email. It's steigerrwayne@gmail.com. Adjust a perception. You know, Joyce, it's interesting. Hello, Cartier. What is up? Paul Joe, it is interesting to think about that. Once you give them permission, they can do this. These are extraordinary beings. Much like we're reading about the time of Jesus in India. And I wrote a note and got up in the middle of the night and wrote this note. I said, isn't it interesting that does the concept of Jesus belong to just one religion, one ideology? I mean, if another ideology that's probably even more superior to the one who's claiming it says, no, there's something else here. So is that here heresy? You know, do you take the stance, well, you're just a bunch of devil talkers, you know? What do you mean Jesus was in India? Well, India is known for what? The land of 1,000,000 gods. So why would a Jewish rabbi venture into a country that was dominated, had the dominion of another god that this god initially was thought to be associated with? So who's right and who's wrong here? They don't give us the story. We've already discovered the controversy is in the existence of the being in itself. We have no records of its actual birth, no records of its growing up, a small little tidbit, not even worth a mention, but, and then another huge gap of time. Don't make sense, does it? A paradigm shift. That's exactly it. By the way, the angel for today is Alada. And this is the angel of divine grace. That's Aladiah. Deus Propitious, the propitious God. I love that. The propitious God. There's a word you don't hear. What does propitious mean? Well, worth looking up, isn't it? The patron of intuitive and innocent people, protector of prisoners, underprivileged and disadvantaged people, and allows to be reinserted into society and live an abundant life. Holy crap, Batman. Did I just read what I just read? Yeah. Protector of prisoners, underprivileged and disadvantaged people, and allows to be reinserted into society and live an abundant life. Yep. Has the ability to absolve, forgive any faults, and dissolve all karma brought with us from a past life. Holy crap again. Wow, I'll let everyone see the card. Can I just get a show of hands up here? How many? And if you don't raise your hand, you're a liar. Come on, be honest. Every one of us could use this being on our A team. Wow. Has the ability to absolve, forgive any faults, and dissolve all karma brought with us from a past life. Brings second chance and new beginnings. Can heal, regenerate ill tissue, and restore health and morale. A symbol of regeneration, tolerance, and clarity of mind. Brings spiritual and physical abundance into our lives. Shows how to be comprehensive, reserved, and dedicated to our beloved people. Gifts us with great imagination, flexibility, self-control, allows us to be able to choose the best path or opportunity. Provides with the restoration of the innocence of the soul. I love this cat. Wow. The innocence of the soul. That's beautiful. Stop and just think about that a second. And thinking about you. If you got to, just close your eyes and think the innocence of your soul. We're all innocent. That's the illusion. We think we're guilty. We're not. Protects from anything which has the potential to unbalance our karmatic energies, false prophets and gurus with bad intentions. Cures negligence, nonchalance, and indifference and lackness. Helps when we face dangerous spiritual activities, moral decadence. Helps in situations like lack of productivity, lack of action, excessive sexual impulses, diets, poor health, anorexia, and bulimia. Pretty cool angel. I mean, this is cool. Well, best time to reach this angel is at 3 a.m. in the morning. Wow, I tell you what a cool angel. I'm going to put that one right over there. That is just, how do you spell his name? R. Wayne Steiger. I am R. Wayne Steiger. No, hon, it's A-L. Here we go. I'll put it up there for everybody. A-L-A-D-I-A-H. Pretty cool. This is another one who's under Razel. It's very interesting. The tarot card for this angel, by the way, is the Six of Pentacles. The Chaldean sign, it's a Deccan ruler. Its element is the modality and fixed earth. Isn't that? Well, this is really cool. It's ruled by Mercury. What an angel. Got myself lost in that one. Hey, Gaia, much love to you and Paul. I was thinking about y'all today in my time of meditation. It's actually, I guess some people could interpret it as, a prayer time. I don't know. Since I really don't pray to anything, I have discussions. I have found it always to be a much better way of communicating. Yeah. So there we go. Everybody needs a fire starter in your house. You need a source where you can get fire. Fire. Jump into the fire. So just thought I'd throw that out there. It's winter time. Now, y'all down in Australia, in the southern hemisphere, we got a lot of listeners down there, a lot of tribe members down there. Y'all are going to be going into spring, so break out the barbecues, and hopefully you can still have barbecues. Life has been so, how should we say, interesting. Okay, folks. So, and I got the tune in my head, Joyce, Harry Nelson. I love the bass. Doom, 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 bum, 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 bum. And then you got to doom, doom, boom, 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 jump into. See, that's how it goes. Back in the day, folks. Still love rock and roll. Yeah. Love classical music. Yeah. Love classical music. If I actually have 3 hours of nothing but French horn, the bassoon, the oboe. Oh, those are beautiful instruments. This is fun, isn't it? Barbecue. Says all year round. That's my thing. Now, here where I live, in the wintertime, it's a bit cold out there, but we do have an indoor grill, a smokeless one. It actually works. Yeah, there we go. Hey, Jenny, what's up? Good to see you, my love. All right. So I love this book we're talking about. I really dig this cat. Want to know more about it. It's kind of like, goes in parallel with the teachings of the Far East Masters, and in that book, and we may bring that back up because it's a long one. But as you remember, the expedition group that went down there, this was back in the 1800s, and what they encountered. For instance, a temple that heals itself. And when you're inside the temple, it'll heal you. They met people, yogis, that were 500, 600, 700 years old. They met that were people were able to, what would be the best, transport themselves, teleport themselves. Yeah. So, if I was going to go and study someplace, I probably would think that. Didn't they isn't that what Doctor Strange, isn't that his whole back thing on the Marvel comics? Isn't that where he went to Tibet and to learn the secrets? Yeah. So anyway, let's rock and roll. Jenny, how you been, dear? Had a dream about you. Anyway, trust everything is a-okay because it was a good one. Okay, so let's see. Here we go. Jesus in India. Who'd have thought? So last time we left here, he just spoke up. This is kind of in the book of Matthew, where you read this, in the book of Luke, where he's in the temple and he picks up the book of Isaiah. And that's when he says, basically, the anointing of the Lord is upon me. And, we know the rest of that. So apparently from that, we know that the thought is that he probably was most likely an Essene, not Jewish in the sense of more of a Hebraic sense of the word. I would say definitely more of a Hellenistic background, which I have read, and I think there, even with what that has been written, it would appear that is really more of what the lifestyle of this cat was. So it was claimed that he was versed in the scriptures and the education with the Essenes. He probably also spent some time in Egypt, where he may have studied with the Egyptian branch of the Essenes. This branch was called the sect of and I think I got this right, the Therapeutae who were famous for their medical knowledge. Interesting. And who had Alexandria as their center. Well, if you studied Alexandria in history at all, you find out, I mean, one of my first century philosophers that I basically broke my teeth in on was Philo of Alexandria. He was of the family of the Alexandrians who formed the triad. How many of you know what the triad is? You had the Alexandrians, you had the Herodians, and then you had the Flavians. They were a powerful, powerful cartel. Anyway, furthermore, there was the Jewish temple of Leontopolis, which had been founded by the high priest Onus the fourth, around the year 160 BC. Onus the fourth had been exiled by the Maccabees and found a hospitable reception in Egypt under the Ptolemies. He was given an unused Egyptian temple. That's strange. How many temples do you have today? Well, our inventory is a little light, but we got this one over here. Okay. For re-education as a Jewish temple because of the occupation of the Jerusalem temple by the Maccabees and the Hasmoneans, the Herods. Yeah. This is an ancient oral tradition in the Egyptian Coptic Church claiming Jesus's presence in Egypt as a sequence to the flight into Egypt. And it's always been interesting because Egypt has always been the backup plan. You know, it goes back to the time of Abram and Sarah. And, you know, then you have Joseph, who rose to the second highest position. And the story goes on and on and on. But India has always been the redheaded stepchild, you know? Yeah, it's part of the family, but yeah. And yet, some of the greatest secrets that I can think of humanity's past are in India. Remarkable technology. Given the conspicuous silence in the New Testament about the following 18 years of Jesus, the Gospel of St. Issa is, on the contrary, very clear about Jesus' whereabouts during that time. When he was around 13 years of age, he joined the caravan of merchants who were returning to India and China, probably by way of the Overland Silk Road, which had been much used ever since the conquest of Alexander the Great. His conquest and unification made the use of the road much safer. The journey to India was about 4,000 miles and would take 6 months or more to cover on foot or camel. Holy crap. Well, that's a journey. No, that is outside a road trip. I mean, a road trip, you know, is like, yeah. Anyway, 6 months. The text informs us that Jesus first traveled through the Indus Valley, which separates present-day Pakistan from India, and from there he traveled onwards to the city of Puri in the present-day Orissa state. He stayed there at the Jagannath Temple complex, which still exists today, and which has always been an important center of learning for the Vedic studies. He also moved to the city of Rajara in today's state of Bihar, and to the famous university town of Kashi, present-day Varnish, or I think Bernays. No doubt he studied the Sanskrit in order to be able to study the Holy Scriptures, such as the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, the Brahma Sutras, and the Puranas. There is no doubt that he became a real yogi, well trained in the use of mantras, and also a Vedic pandit, or knower of the scriptures. His major quality was that he did not follow the caste system, and he made communication with every human being a centerpiece of his preachings. It meant that he communicated with the lowest class and the untouchables and taught them the tenets of the Vedic tradition against the wishes of the Brahmin priest. And in this way, he gradually incurred the wrath of the ruling class. One of the principal tenets of his teachings was that he declaimed strongly against man's aggregating to himself the authority to deprive his fellow beings of their human and spiritual rights. Verily, he said, God has made no difference between his children, who are all alike and dear to him. Still the male thing, but all right. Once he returned to Palestine, he would invoke the same resistance among the ruling class and thus arouse the suspicion of the Roman occupying forces. To the Himalayas, to Tibet, to Persia, the ruling classes in the North India were scheming to have Saint Issa murdered, but man, they're always wanting to kill the peace guys. But advanced warning from his low-class followers, he decided to move to Nepal, at that time the center of the Buddhist worship. Buddha was born in Nepal, and the text tells us that Saint Issa learnt in Nepal the Pali language so that he could study the Buddhist holy scriptures. He stayed in Nepal for 6 years, and from there he returned to the Indus Valley and started his journey towards the West. Along the way, he preached supreme perfection attainable by man, and everywhere he stressed the innate oneness of reality. Here again, Saint Issa convinced the multitude to abandon their idol worship and turn their vision to the transcendental reality of God, who remains invisible. I can dig that. He once more incurred the wrath of the ruling classes. Why? He was always bringing them up. You can't keep a poor man down if they're being edified every day. You walk up to a guy and said, you have got a talent. You really do. You really, I think, in fact, I can tell you, it's a God-given talent. And you constantly lift them up, I don't like that. Isn't there a saying that is something like, blessed are the edifiers? Edifying means to lift up. Yeah. He once more incurred the wrath of the ruling class and slowly moved towards Persia, where he came in contact with the Zoroastrian tradition. Wow. Well, there we go. I've got their whole book here. And the interesting thing, I had to order two because the first one was in Aramaic. I don't read Aramaic very good, but the damn thing is like 3 inches thick. But anyway, so the Zoroastrian, wow. There he denounced the sun worship, saying, the eternal being says to your people by my mouth, you shall not adore the sun, for it is but a part of the universe which I have created for man. Well, one could extrapolate. If I was in Bible school, I could say, so this tells me right here that man is the inheritor of the universe. So I wonder what the other species have to say that. Your ass. All right. When Saint Issa was 29 years old, he arrived back in Palestine. He found the people even in more distress than when he left Palestine and began to exhort them to stop despairing and to return to the true principles of the Jewish tradition. At this point, the text of the Gospel of Saint Issa joins the text of the New Testament as we know it, having filled the gap of the missing 18 years of Jesus in India. Well, now that's so interesting, because if in fact, and that they have truly made the connection, it's not being taught today. They'll call this heresy. So we all know the story of him coming to Palestine. I just find it interesting that if in fact this did happen, it's difficult for me then to frame into then what's the purpose of a human sacrifice. I'm reaching for that. I'm just talking out loud here as we read this together, because it seems like that it was directed at one particular central point of culture, where what I have gotten from this book is that it would seem that it's quite the opposite, that this Christos, this Christ, this Issa, would have had a far more broader perception of what they're calling God than to be limited to what this God said was his chosen race. And I have a problem with that because that's racist of racist. I mean, if you're saying that I'm choosing that race of people, that culture, above all their others, that's the epitome of racism, isn't it? I don't know. And then how do you translate that correlating into an acceptance that, well, the whole world is supposed to accept? This is where my disconnect is, and this is what drew me to this. I'm skipping over the rest of this on the whole narrative of the whole Roman thing, because what I have read here, unfortunately, really lacks, in my opinion, a lot of authenticity. So again, if this was the true purpose, then I'm really lacking the connection. Then what was the point of being in India for 18 years? Let's see what it says here. The discovery of the text of the Gospel of Isa is important because it gives much more insight into the upbringing, education, and training. All right, we get that. This information is lacking in the biblical text. The text also tells us that Isa was a brilliant student of the Jewish faith, but when he had reached the marriageable age of 13, he decided that he should study further rather than becoming involved in the family. Well, you see, that kind of goes counter to what a rabbi does. And having almost converted to Judaism, and we're just talking here, I have a problem here, because if he was truly of a Jewish origin, of his birth, of his beliefs, now he may have been of the Essene tradition, but still in the heart of Judaism, this would disqualify him from ever considered a rabbi. This is heresy. But he spent 18 years in India, which tells me that I'm really confused, because what was the purpose there? It says that he studied the ancient Vedic tradition in India, that he became well-versed. We get that. It says that he probably stayed in the Himalayan range for another 6 years, and then slowly as his return to Palestine. It's a little difficult for me to begin to say, all right, then what was the purpose here? I mean, that's the allurement of the belief system, is that you have a place you get to fit in. That's why all religions prosper, is that because those who give of themselves to that belief system, boom, baby, they have found home. It's great, It's why they thrive, so that you have a place. Talks about him preached to a totally new approach towards the way his male followers would treat women. Well, if I understand Indian culture, women are kind of second-class citizens, is what I have been led to believe. And it follows the same way in Judaism. Very maleness, man. Like, man. He insisted on equality and made distinction between men and women in terms of spiritual and religious development. Left out the cultural aspect. He went further and gave her a special status of the mother of the universe, a direct exponent of the great mother, the Magna Mater, which has been worshipped from the beginning of creation. So, respect women, for in her we see the mother of the universe, and all the truth of divine creation is to come through her. So we're a smart group. This is comparative religion study here. So how would you address this? I mean, we have an individual that's in a cultural societal system, the caste system in India, which is pretty much represented in Israel as well. Listen, in Israel, slavery was permitted. So it's the same kind of system. And in both of those systems, they are monotheistic, patriarchal. And here, I mean, listen, I agree. The feminine is completely reduced out of the equation, but yet, if these words are true, respect women. For in her we see the mother of the universe, and all the truth of divine creation is to come through her. So here's my mind. I'm clicking, I'm going, okay, wait a minute. Why? Okay, if you're the son of this God, that your belief system is here, that God instructed the children of Israel to either rape or to bring into the slaves into the sex trade to satisfy the lusts and the desires of the Israeli army. So how do I reach a conclusion from there to here that this cat is supposed to be the mediator between the two? I'm not following it, although I do agree. Get some people riled up on that one. Number one, Pontius Pilate would have never done this. Here's history. And unfortunately, it's still wrapped up pretty much into this genre as well. You never would have done that. Vespasian would have had him, he would have died by the sword very quickly. But hell, I mean, if you read the 29th chapter of the book of Acts, that's right, there isn't one in the traditional King James. They cut it out. But if you read that one, guess who did kill Pilate? The Apostle Paul. Slayed him by the sword and then threw him over a cliff, so it says. And then Paul went up and instead lived with the Druids and apparently bought a wine farm there in the southern part of Germany and lived until he died of old age. It kind of goes against the narrative of the whole thing that you have in the book of Acts, because it's thought that Paul was beheaded by Nero. Apparently not, but I digress. I love this. So let's see. The Roman governor who was adamant in bringing about the crucifixion of Jesus, whereas the Jewish priests and the Sanhedrin did their very best to avoid such a disaster. Isn't it odd? Because this is a completely different narrative. I mean, look what Hollywood has done with it and go read it. That's apparently. So who's right? Who's wrong here? I mean, they're intermingling histories from multiple different perspectives, each with their own different twist, but yet they're saying the topography of the story is supposed to remain constant. Well, I find it a little slippery. I love this. This is what it's all about, folks. To be able to, how should we say, have the opportunity to discuss things like this, because this is me. It's so interesting. So let's just look in. We got a little bit of time here. So let's get to what does this gospel actually say? So this is chapter 1. The earth trembled and the heavens wept at the dreadful and sins committed in the land of Israel. For there was torture and murder, the great and just Isa, in whom was manifested the soul of the universe. That's an interesting phrase, the soul of the universe, which had incarnated in a simple mortal for the benefit of mankind to wash away all sinful thoughts. Well, who's setting the standard for what the sin is? That soul had come to lead mankind, degraded by a sinful life, back to a life of peace, love, and goodness, and to remind man of the one and indivisible Creator whose mercy is infinite and without bounds. A little digressing here. So for 2,000 years, we can't seem to get this right. And apparently, the prior 5,000, 6,000 years, we didn't get it right either there. 5, the merchants coming from the land of Israel had given the following account of what had occurred. The people of Israel lived on fertile lands, tending herds of cattle and producing 2 harvests a year. But because of their sinful ways of living, they incurred the wrath of God. So you got a loving God who's all forgiving. What do we hear up here? Was all forgiving and ever loving. Yeah. Okay. That's why I wasn't very good in class. Wait a minute. For this God, now isn't it interesting? Look at the words here. For this God, not in the Hebrew text where if they were actually saying of a person, a deity, it would be the God. But it said, for this God took away all of their possessions and decreed that they become slaves to the mighty Pharaoh of Egypt. I'm losing the motivation to get involved with this being. Just saying. So the Israelites were treated worse than the beast by the pharaohs. We know this story. They were condemned to hard labor and to put in irons, their bodies covered with wounds and sores. They were not permitted to live under a roof and were virtually starved to death. Well, that's a whole different story than what we've got in the book of Exodus. At least they were eating. The Pharaoh had decreed that they should be kept continually in terror and deprived of all human comforts. Wow. In their great hardship and agony, the Israelites remembered how the Lord in heaven had earlier saved their forefathers in times of distress, and they prayed, imploring his mercy and help. At that period, there reigned in Egypt an illustrious Pharaoh who was renowned for his many victories, his immense riches, and his gigantic palaces he had erected by the hard labor of his slaves. The Pharaoh had 2 sons. Yeah, I think we can get on this, although there's an interesting, it's with Moses. So we know the story, but this is from chapter 1. This is of the India story. And you can see that there's a few variations, but the story is kind of the story. We've read about this. I actually want to get where he's actually in India. Well, let's continue to read about this badass God. Let's see. And Moses was beloved by all in Egypt for his kindness of heart and compassion, and he showed to all sufferers. When Moses saw that in spite of their endless misery and hardship, the sons of Israel had not lost faith in their Lord and had not taken to the worship of petty gods of Egypt, Moses believed in their God, whom he considered to be the one and indivisible. Priests who acted as teachers to the Israelites appealed to Moses to request their father, the great Pharaoh, to come into their aid to their co-religionists. This, they thought, would bring good to all. We know it didn't. Anyway, this is interesting. I'll read this over the weekend because I want to see the comparative. So apparently we go all the way back into the history of the children of Israel. Until we get to the birth of this Christ. And I just want to read what they said. The moment the time had come, the compassionate judge to incarnate in human form, the internal spirit dwelling in the state of complete inaction and supreme bliss, awakened and separated from all the pervading supreme soul, came to assume the form of a human being. That's interesting. The all-pervading supreme soul. He descended on earth to show all living creatures the way to unite with God and attain eternal bliss, and to show by his example how one can attain inner purity and free the soul from her gross casing in order to attain a state of perfection and thus arrive at bliss without end in God's immovable heaven. And isn't it interesting? They use the feminine term. Okay, we're going to quit right there. I'm going to get into this a little bit more because I find it interesting. Well, there we go, folks. Not the average cup of tea for everybody, but knowledge is knowledge. And for myself, I find it interesting. It's a different point of view. The narrative is about the same, but what was it? The following story is true, but the names and faces and the actual names of the people have been altered to protect their identity. Get a lot of that, but the supreme soul, isn't that interesting? And it shows again the duality of the God that's being talked about here. I mean, how can you have a God that would inflict men with leprosy, sores upon their bodies, allow them to be beaten, slaved, raped, tortured, and say that he's a merciful God? I disagree. Now, I'm a mere mortal. I get that, but I'm eternal also. And there are times where you can try to put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. And it's not, this is where I get lost in the, all right, so what's the message here? If it's truly about love, what we're so, I mean, this is like a pot you're making a stew out of, right? And you're saying that this is wonderful tasting stew. It is just the right thing for you. And you take a sip of it and you go, what the hell was that? And then you say, oh, well, I forgot to put this one ingredient into it. It's going to change everything. That's what I see with this Christ message. What was the message? What, to love one another? I get that. But we seem to be at this stage of our development incapable of loving one another. We do it in small enclaves, but eventually, look at lifelong friends, how quickly they can separate. Look how families can quickly separate over the most meaningless, de minimis issue. You just went on holiday. Martin, Heidi, I love y'all. All right, folks, it's Friday, but that's why I love this topic. It's relevant for today. There is no love anywhere. I mean, I was talking to a political person in my life. That's their life. And she agreed. She said, DC, is and I quote her exactly. She said, it is the most humanless, soulless place now. She says that when you literally drive in from the Beltway and you get in to DC proper, when you cross the bridge, she says it's almost like there's this tangible essence. And she said, it's everywhere. She says the people in DC, they don't smile. There is this sense of dread. She says she goes into meetings that she says it's almost at times unbearable. Wow. Thank you, Dave Sullivan. I love all of y'all, folks. Y'all are just some of the most wonderful people I know. And I tell you, I know prosperity because all I have to do is just look at this chat room, for instance, and know that I am truly prospering in the midst of so many wonderful spirit beings. And y'all are a groovy group, man. I love it. Randy, what's up? Yeah, that's true. Let's see, the committee. There is a lot messed up. I am right there with you. Jenny, much love to you, hon. Susie Q, much love. Paul and Gaia, Ed. All right, everyone. Have yourself a great Saturday and Sunday, man. I mean, seriously. We'll pick back up on Monday. We'll probably get into a different one. But I'm going to finish this over the weekend. I'll give you my assessment on it, what I think. It's interesting. But again, I'm still lost in How does imperfection come from perfection? No philosopher, no teacher has ever been able to answer that for me. Because in the laws of the physical verse, it's impossible. But we live the impossible every day here, don't we? All right. Much love, everyone. Have yourself a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday. All right. Bye-bye. Oh, so the Andromeda 7, Celestial Gateway, I believe tonight at 8 p.m. Tomorrow night, I believe, with Robert V over in the Milky Way Soul Tribe, and Nina's channel on Sunday nights.